everyone. So I wanted to follow up on our discussion from Tuesday and go ahead and demo what I was talking about in looking at modifying Excel charts in, say, Illustrator, or in this case, I'm going to use something called Inkscape, and actually using an iframe to get them onto our web page. So here is my current page as it stands. You can see there's not a whole lot to it, but hopefully you will remember that we edited this. We sort of got this two-column setup. You all got this two-column setup using Bootstrap as a framework. And so now I'm going to go ahead and open this back up, take a look at it, move some stuff around, and use it to embed an edited Excel chart as an iframe through an iframe. So I'm going to create an Excel chart. I'm going to import it into Inkscape, make some changes, and then I'm going to export it as an SVG, that's the scalable vector graphics format, and use an iframe to make it appear on my page and move around just like anything else. So to kind of demo that this is working correctly, I'm actually going to, instead of making a new row, I'm going to adjust the sizing on my current row. Sorry for the flashing here. I honestly don't know what causes that. And I'm going to just leave this one empty for now. Well, actually, I'm going to create my iframe. So here I have my original set of stuff. I can look at my my charts, and I can see that they're 500 by 300. I'm actually going to squish this down a little bit because I think 500 is going to be a little bit big. Now, the way that I'm going to do this to start off is I'm going to go ahead and start by putting in an iframe. I'm going to point it at nonsense for the time being, which again is what I recommend for all of you, is that you kind of just get the infrastructure set up. Don't worry if the content is what it will be eventually, but make sure that, you know, this will help give you lots of time to troubleshoot, make sure that things are positioning correctly, etc. So here I'm going to say I have an iframe. Now iframes are a little bit weird. They're a little bit more like they have this SRC. It's a little bit like an image tag. Iframes are a very old kind of HTML tag. They've been around for a long time. So it has some explicit parameters that we don't see on other tags. So we have the source aspect, which is perhaps not surprising given that the iframe is a window into another page or a window onto another page. And then the features that are unique that you're not going to see other places are the scrolling equals no. What this will do is make sure that if your target content is bigger, you don't see scroll bars, right? So the whole point of this is that our end user doesn't care that this is an iframe. We don't want them to care that this is an iframe. We want the appearance, the visual appearance of this to be seamless, right? While also making it, you know, as attractive as possible. And so we're going to set scrolling to no. There's another parameter called frame border. We're going to get to 0. 0 is false. Okay, and then I'm just going to go ahead and say iframe. Now, so you can see there's a closing tag here. The final thing I'm going to do is I'm just like any other HTML tag. I can give it an ID, and of course I still want to use CSS as much as possible to control the appearance of this. So I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to create in my CSS, I'm going to create an ID driven class, and I'm going to give it, I feel like this should be, it's weird indent. And I'm going to give it the same size as my other elements for now, right? And I'm not going to bother with the background color at the moment. Remember, we were using that background color to indicate, you know, to just check that we weren't getting that jump effect. And obviously that's something we want to do here as well. But it's the width and the height that actually prevents that, not the background color. Okay, so I now have an iframe set up, and of course one question you may have is, well, what is this? This new page.html is actually just something I had left over in this folder. It's from very early on in the class. So I can open this up with Chrome, and again, this is just my placeholder, right? I'm not worrying about what's in here. This was just one of our demos, and so I can test that I have implemented everything correctly by opening my main page now in Chrome and taking a look at it and seeing what I see. So what you can see here is that I get the text, and you see it's even transparent. It doesn't even have a background color. I get this text. Now it's positioned in a weird way because of the width of my window. You can see, however, that it does stack properly, right? So again, it's up to you all to make sure that the actual width and height of your visualizations meshes with the amount of space essentially that you've given them in those column layouts. And that's where, again, a lot of that sort of, tweaking and fiddling is going to happen to make it look really good. But, again, what I wanted here is confirmation that, in fact, and I can use my inspect button here, is I want confirmation that, in fact, the material is, that content is showing up the way that I expect it to. Here is my row class, and I can see there's 1, 2, 3. But you notice that the width that is available for these columns is much narrower than what I have asserted the width of the divs to be, or the width of my visualizations to be, which is around even still 400 pixels, right? So, so I would need to sort of deal with that in order to make this layout look really good. For the time being, we're not going to worry about that, and I just want to sort of focus on how would I actually use that iframe. How do I actually go through the steps of modifying my Excel chart or chart from another source. You can see here, if you'll recall, this is work we did earlier in the semester where we put direct labels on a bar chart. These are the Google visualizations, so they also have interactivity. There are pros and cons to each of these. An SVG is not going to give us interactivity, but it can sometimes give us more easily give us a refined look, if you will. So that's something that is a trade-off to consider for each of the visualizations that you're doing. Is what is the ultimate what ultimately is the best visualization for your purposes, and how can you most effectively render that online. So that is where we're starting from. So now I'm going to go and grab some data, just like we did in class, and this is actually a version of the same file that we looked at on Tuesday. So big old Excel file. Now I don't have Adobe Illustrator on my computer. It is expensive and complicated, as we experienced in class. So I'm just going to go ahead and use something called Inkscape. Again, it's free software. So here's basically the same data set that I had. I'm going to do the same process. I'm going to go to charts here and create a 2-column line chart. A 2D column chart. Okay, and then the way that if you all want to use Inkscape, and I do recommend it, again, it's free. I find it relatively straightforward to use. I'm going to go ahead and open that. Sometimes it takes a minute to get opened. But you'll see it's a very similar look, very similar interface to Illustrator. And the way that I interact with this, the way that I work with this chart in Inkscape is I actually need to save the Excel version down as a PDF, and then I'll open it in Inkscape. I don't do a copy and paste directly to Inkscape. So back here in Excel, I'm going to do Save As. And rather than comma separated value, I'll choose PDF. I'll bring it into my folder and hit Save. Okay. Inkscape is, in my experience, a little less finicky. It's again up to you all what you're most comfortable with, what you find is most useful. So I'm going to go say Open, and if I go to that folder, it's going to quickly identify that PDF. It's got a super weird extension. And I'm going to leave this as not too precise because I don't want my SVG to be very big. And again, here I have it. So it works in basically the same way. You can see there's something has happened to my my AT element. But I can do this. I'm not going to worry about being super specific with the colors right now, but there is, for example, a color bar here. I can choose that color. Well, I thought I could choose that color pretty effectively. There we go. Right. It's not the same, right? So you'll obviously need to be more precise about your color choices. You can use the color selection app. This one went weird, but seems to be fine. It handles text reasonably well. These pieces outside seem to edit very easily as text. Although that is a tip, just a pro tip, if you're trying to edit text that you've imported here, if you select the box and you go to text and remove manual kerns, it will behave more nicely. So now when I select this and hit T, oh, maybe not. Well, there you go. Let me see if I can get that up and running again. So there you go. That is one of the challenges, I guess, of working with, or one of the side effects of working with open source materials. Sometimes it's a little finicky. But again, it is all up to you. So here we go. Fortunately, I hadn't done too much. And anyway, I'm not going to worry too much about the specifics on this. I'm actually going to get rid of this text, and for the time being, I'm just going to worry about moving this over into the corner. So what is useful is to position this in the top left corner of the page, and you'll see in a few minutes why that's meaningful. So I'm going to still do my color editing here, get that done before we go any further. And I could, again, delete elements, add, delete elements, add callouts, things like that. Right. See, it doesn't like treating this as text. It's a little bit trickier there. And so in that case, I would just delete it and then add the text manually. In any case, assuming that I have made the edits in my favorite vector editing program, I'm going to go ahead and save this, and I'm going to save it as an SVG. So I do save as. In this case, I'm going to give this a more sensible file name. Okay, and I'm just going to save it right into the same dataviz A folder. Okay, and now I can check and see what that looks like by going into that folder, right? And I can just choose to, it looks like I did actually save a backup. I didn't actually lose my work before, but I'm going to get rid of that anyway. So now I can open this with Chrome, because again, remember that scalable vector graphics, it's a web-friendly format, and I can see that, such as it is, there's my SVG. So now, fortunately, all I have to do to get this onto my page is to edit the source element here. And again, Aptana is pretty handy, because as I start to fill this in, it's going to show me all of the things that are available, and I can just go ahead and choose my SVG there. If I save this and reload my page, you can see that the chart appears no problem, right? So again, it's from the user's perspective, this is now, of course, the width isn't, wide, I'm not showing all of it, etc. But again, scales and all of that, or the sort of the size of the graphics, is something that you'll have to negotiate. But as you can see, this does a pretty nice job. There's no visibility, from the user's perspective. There's no difference in sort of the quality rendering here, which is really great, because what it means is that we don't have to do everything as images. We get that crispness of having the scalable vector graphics, but we get the crispness of the scalable vector graphics, but we don't have to worry about embedding all of the junk, essentially, that constitutes a scalable vector graphic into our web page, right? We can kind of do that window onto it. So just to point out what all is in that scalable vector graphics file, it's pretty complicated. So if I go ahead and open this in Aptana, you're going to see it's all of this, right? So you really wouldn't want to be trying to embed this directly into your web page, and that's why iframes provide us a really nice solution. So again, this was just to go over what we had talked about last week. If you have any questions, please post them to Piazza, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon.